This is the Head Radical Tour and Head Radical Tour Co. Confusing names for a very, very solid paddle. When it comes to confusing paddle lineups and naming schemes, Head is probably one of the worst offenders. I'm just going to talk about their lineup real quick and try to explain it to you so you can make a better informed decision if you're in the market for a Head paddle. So first, let's talk about the three lines that Head offers: the Radical, the Gravity, and the Extreme. Now, some of you may know that Head also makes tennis rackets, and I would argue some of the best tennis rackets on the market. And I actually used to play with some of the rackets when I was still playing a lot of tennis. And their Pickleball paddle line actually borrows names from their tennis racket line, which is where it causes a bit of confusion for me personally. So in their Pickleball paddle lineup, the Extreme is supposed to be their feel, touch, and control lineup, which actually doesn't make a lot of sense for me personally, because in comparison to their tennis lineup, the Extreme is supposed to be their more power focused line. So imagine my surprise when I found out that the Extreme Pickleball paddles is their touch and control line. Like, why wouldn't you just match it with your tennis racket lineup? Like, it's a no-brainer, duh. All right, next up we have the Gravity line, which I actually think lines up with their tennis rackets pretty well. It's an all-around paddle that provides a more forgiving feel and sweet spot from all areas of the court. It has good control and actually decent power, but nothing really stands out when compared to the rest of the market, in my opinion. And now we have the Radical lineup, which in their tennis lineup focuses on controllable power and with an emphasis on spin. Now, the Radicals in their Pickleball paddle lineup, I guess for the most part, kind of matches up with the Radical lineup in their tennis lineup, but I would classify the Radical paddles as a power paddle. And that is the standout feature from the Radical Tour and Radical Tour Co. The power, especially at the $150 price tag at the time of recording of this video. Now, within each line, you have another naming scheme of nouns disguising themselves as adjectives used to try and differentiate themselves even further: elite, pro, and tour. And that's going from worst to best respectively, with tour being their best, based purely on price. Now, I know that the choice of these monikers is arbitrary, and it kind of makes sense if you come from the tennis world, since many top tennis rackets have the moniker of tour, at least for the highest end line. But for the average pickleball consumer, that shit make no sense. It's like some people from the marketing department at Head was like, "Hey boss, I think we should make our paddle lineup for our customers as confusing as possible." Jerry, that's a horrible idea. Let's do it. Head, just do better. Like, I don't know what your sales are looking like, but I bet your sales would look a lot better if your lineup was either simplified or explained better in the marketing material or like on your website. All I'm saying. Anyways, naming scheme confusion aside, the Head Radical Tour and Head Radical Tour Co. are really great power paddles for a really good price. The Head Radical Tour comes in at a weight of 7.9 ounces, a length of 16 inches, a width of 7 7/8 inches, a thickness of 15 millimeters, and a grip length of 5 inches. The Tour Co. comes in at a weight of 8.1 ounces, a length of 16 inches, a width of 7 7/8 inches, a thickness of 15 millimeters, and a grip length of 5 inches. And the handle is really well constructed and I think is one of the best on the market right now. These two paddles are power paddles through and through, and their only difference is the weight and the surface material. The Tour Co. is a bit heavier at an average weight of 8.1 ounces compared to the 7.9 ounces of the regular Tour. The Co in Tour Co, I believe, stands for composite, as the surface is a composite blend of what I believe to be graphite and fiberglass versus the all graphite face of the Tour. Now, how does this affect how they play? The Tour Co is a little bit more powerful, but it's honestly negligible. Like, I even second guess myself thinking the Tour Co is actually any different. However, it would make sense that the Tour Co is a little bit more powerful considering the heavier weight and the fiberglass used in the composite of the face, since fiberglass is known to provide more pop on paddles that use it, whereas graphite is seen as a more soft and forgiving material. Now, I personally gravitated towards the Radical Tour over the Tour Co just because it had a little bit more touch and a little bit more feel. And I felt like both of them are pretty equal in power already. Now, speaking of power, it's the Radical Tour and Tour Co's standout characteristic. The balls just really fly off this paddle. Now, I can't definitively tell you that it has more power than, say, a Selkirk Power Air or a Selkirk 002 or even the ProKenix Black Ace, but I'd put it in the same tier, maybe a little bit less. Hold up, gotta pay some bills. I want to introduce you to today's sponsor, which is Melin. I love these hats. Now, if you know me or been following me, you know when I'm out in the wild, when I'm out there making videos, competing, playing, having fun, I'm usually wearing one of these hats. Now, these hats are not cheap, but I'm a firm believer of buy once, cry once, where you buy something of high quality and it lasts you for years to come. Now, these hats are of extreme quality and just hold their shape extremely well. The hats feature water-resistant materials, moisture-wicking lining, and antimicrobial sweatbands. They come in many different colors, patterns, shapes, and sizes to fit your style. Check this one out. This one right here, pour water over it. Changes color, changes pattern. It's pretty dope, right? I totally didn't think this through. I got water like all over my desk and pants now. Look good, feel good, play good. Now I can't guarantee that last part, but what I can guarantee you is that you can save 20% off your first order by using my link in the description below or the code PickleballWheel at checkout. Full disclosure, I may or may not get a kickback if you use my code in the description down below off your first order, but it's a small way for you to support me and support the channel at no additional cost to you. All right, back to your regularly scheduled programming. So both radicals are 15 millimeters, and I thought that it would play closer to a 16 millimeter paddle, but I was very wrong. This thing is stiff, crisp, and responsive. The ball just feels like it doesn't dwell on the face long enough when you're striking through the ball. If you're a person with a style that likes to redirect shots with blocks, pushes, punches, volleys, and really just likes to guide the ball, then this paddle might be for you. It also feels quite predictable. In comparison, if your stroke/swing tends to move across your body quickly, either with ground strokes, volleys, and rolls, then it may take a little bit of an adjustment to get the shots you want out of this paddle. The reason being is because the ball just doesn't sit on the paddle face that long when you're striking through it. You have a shorter window of forgiveness from the paddle, and your timing just has to be on point. I just want to preface by saying that there is no right or wrong technique when using this paddle or any other paddle for that matter. Now, I know Head is revamping their line and they're reworking the Gravity and the Extreme for 2023. I don't know if they're going to update the Head Radical, but I'm curious to see what the new lineup has to offer in 2023. Okay, all joking aside, I think the Head Radicals are just okay when it comes to the short and the soft game. Not bad at all. I think it just takes an adjustment period, but nothing really wowed me with their touch and their feel, and I think they're just, like I said, okay. You can reset, dink, drop fairly well, but it's not my favorite paddle for that part of my game. And I feel like if I'm not careful, my dinks, resets, and drops are going to be popped just a little bit too high and I'm going to get attacked. However, with that being said, if you find yourself in a hands battle or a fast exchange, this thing is a beast. Partly because of the power, but also partly because of the shape and the specs. I think the paddles are pretty maneuverable at 7.9 ounces and 8.1 ounces respectively. And if you look at the paddle, it's not quite elongated, but it's also not quite a wide body paddle either. I think the shorter paddle coupled with a lighter weight just makes it a more faster maneuverable paddle. Also, I just like the way that the paddle tapers right here near the handle. There's a little bit more surface area here, and I just feel more confident that if a ball hits this part of my paddle during hands battles, the ball will more likely go over. Whereas if I hit it here with the SLK Halo and other similarly shaped paddles, I probably lost this rally and then begin to curse my atrocious skills under my breath and then proceed to blame it all on my paddle. Now, regardless of whatever paddle you use, if you hit the ball in this area right here, your shot is probably gonna suck. Unless it's a Selkirk with a hole in it, because then it 100% definitely sucks. But with the way the shape of the Radical is, it doesn't suck nearly as much, unless you're the best 3-5 player alive. All right, let's talk about spin. Some pretty good spin, pretty decent spin potential, but nothing that really wowed me. I'd say it's a little bit above average and definitely a tier below some of the raw carbon fiber paddles you find out there on the market right now. But I never felt like it was lacking in the spin department. The paddle uses some sort of coating that feels way more robust than spray-on grip paint, and I would go as far as to say that after my super scientific scratch test, that it actually feels very similar to some of the higher end Selkirk paddles, such as the Power Air, the 002, and 003. I do think that if Head found a way to soften up the paddle, or maybe found a more forgiving, softer core, you can really shape the ball more and get way more spin potential off this paddle. Maybe Head will do that in some of their other lines or bring it to the Radical in their 2023 lineup. We'll see. I think it's worth noting that second only to Gearbox, the Head Radicals are probably some of the best constructed paddles that I've played with to date. For $150, not only does this thing play pickleball well, it can also take a beating physically and emotionally. So you can probably yell at it and curse at it all you want because you are 3'5" at best, and unlike your significant other, it won't have you sleeping on the couch later that night. The handle construction is one of the best on the market. The paddle face and grip seem to be holding up fairly well, and I haven't noticed any drop off in performance from the 6 to 8 weeks I played with the paddle. The edge guard is firm and doesn't feel like it's coming off anytime soon. Also, I think the graphic on the paddle and the colorways look awesome. The black and orange contrast with the reflective accent on the logo is just a really nice touch. So is it dope or nope? It's definitely dope, especially at this price point. If you're okay with the touch and feel of a more stiff paddle and you're looking for power without having to make too much adjustments to your soft game, then I think the Head Radical Tour or Head Radical Tour Co. are definitely worth considering. It's also just not the performance. The build quality, aesthetics, and just overall package is just really polished, as you would expect from a high-end sports equipment manufacturer like Head. What's not polished is their marketing materials and information out on their pickleball products. That's garbage, and I expect better from Head. Other than that, the Head Radical Tour and Head Radical Tour Co. are great paddles, especially if you're someone looking for power, and I do highly recommend it. Till next time, play better. Great meeting, Jerry. I'll see you next week.